On September 17, 1944, at an altitude of 14,000 feet over the small Dutch town of Eindhoven, the Allies launched Operation Market Garden, marking the largest airborne assault in history. Across the Dutch fields and villages, thousands of paratroopers descended under the protection of Allied aircraft, while squadrons of P-47 Thunderbolts patrolled the skies above the drop zones. These planes, laden with bombs, carried payloads that would have been considered unthinkable just a year and a half earlier. For Luftwaffe pilots, the appearance of these American fighters armed with 2,500-pound bombs, roughly half the load of a B-17 Flying Fortress on long-range missions, was entirely unexpected. The aircraft they had once dismissed as too heavy and cumbersome in 1943 had been transformed into a versatile war machine. The P-47 now combined the agility of a single siege fighter with the firepower of a light bomber. It could engage enemy aircraft, strike ground targets with significant ordnance, and return safely, a combination that defied conventional German understanding of air combat at the time. This evolution of the Thunderbolt fundamentally altered European air warfare. It not only reshaped Allied tactical approaches but also intensified the collapse of the Wehrmacht, leaving a lasting impact on the development of military aviation doctrine. American industrial ingenuity had produced more than just a new fighter. It had created a multi-role combat aircraft capable of performing a wide array of missions with remarkable efficiency and lethal effectiveness. When the Republic P-47 entered operational service in April 1943, Luftwaffe intelligence officers were initially unimpressed. The specifications suggested a cumbersome, overbuilt machine. Empty, the Thunderbolt weighed around 10,000 pounds, roughly twice as much as a Messerschmitt Bf-109G. Its Pratt & Whitney R2800 double wasp engine, an 18-cylinder radial, generated 2,000 horsepower, with later models reaching 2,300 and ultimately 2,800 horsepower, yet the aircraft appeared ungainly, almost as if aerodynamic refinement had been ignored entirely. Early combat missions only seemed to validate these German assumptions. The P-47's limited operational range of 125 miles restricted its utility as a long-range bomber escort. Its climb rate lagged behind the nimble German fighters, and during medium-altitude dogfights, the Focke-Wulf 190 and Bf-109 maintained clear advantages in maneuverability. However, over time, the Thunderbolt's combination of speed, durability, and payload capacity would prove decisive, redefining the concept of a fighter bomber and demonstrating the extraordinary effectiveness of American design philosophy. German pilots quickly recognized and exploited the vulnerabilities of the P-47 Thunderbolt, seeking to trap the relatively heavy American fighter in close quarters, turning fights or steep vertical maneuvers, where its mass became a disadvantage. However, what Luftwaffe engineers and tacticians overlooked was that the aircraft they were observing was in its early stages of development, with performance potential far beyond what had yet been realized. Its rugged airframe, constructed with steel tubing and reinforced armor, contributed to its considerable weight, but also gave it an unparalleled ability to withstand damage and carry substantial external loads. The wing pylons, initially intended for auxiliary fuel tanks, were designed to handle up to 2,500 pounds of ordnance, far more than most contemporary fighters could safely manage. The evolution of the Thunderbolt's role was driven less by overarching strategy than by practical adaptation in the field. By mid-1943, P-47 pilots returning from bomber escort missions began targeting secondary objectives: rail locomotives, supply trucks, fuel depots, and the results were striking. Equipped with 850 caliber Browning M2 machine guns, each capable of firing 800 rounds per minute, the Thunderbolt could unleash approximately 12.7 pounds of metal per second, enough to destroy locomotives or obliterate vehicle convoys. Recognizing the potential, formal modifications for bombing were introduced later that year. In November 1943, engineers fitted bomb racks capable of carrying 500-pound bombs on both the fuselage and wing pylons. On November 25, the 62nd Fighter Squadron executed the first official P-47 bombing sortie, striking the Luftwaffe airfield at Stowe, France. 8 aircraft, each loaded with two 250-pound bombs, successfully demolished 2 hangars and damaged several planes on the ground. Through the winter of 1943-44, Republic Aviation, together with the USAAF Technical Services, intensified the Thunderbolt's transformation. Wing spars were strengthened to withstand uneven bomb loads, while new electrical systems were developed to reliably release ordnance at altitudes ranging from treetop level to 30,000 feet. Bombing accuracy was improved with specialized gun sights, including the K-14 computing sight, which could calculate dive and glide bombing angles. By early 1944, these changes extended far beyond simple bomb racks. The addition of mate 4.5-inch rockets, each delivering a blast comparable to a 105mm artillery shell, gave the P-47 firepower equivalent to a small naval destroyer. A single Thunderbolt could carry 10 rockets in addition to two 1,000-pound bombs, surpassing the explosive payload of many twin-engine bombers early in the war. The significance of the Thunderbolt's capabilities became evident on D-Day, June 6, 1944. On that day alone, P-47 seconds flew nearly 2,000 combat missions, delivering 525 tons of bombs and firing 135,000 rounds of D-50 caliber ammunition. Their attacks destroyed 86 locomotives, over 500 vehicles, 38 artillery positions, and 17 fuel storage sites. What the Luftwaffe had once considered a mediocre high-altitude interceptor had evolved into a cornerstone of tactical air power. German ace pilot Gerhard Barkhorn, who achieved 275 aerial victories during his career, recounted in a 1996 HistoryNet interview that encountering the P-47 was formidable. The aircraft shot me down, but we recognized immediately that it had remarkable diving speed and could reach 1,400 km, far surpassing the Bf-109's 1,000 km H limit. In essence, the P-47 Thunderbolt's initial limitations were gradually overcome through a combination of field experience, pragmatic engineering, and adaptation to operational needs, transforming it into a heavily armed, versatile platform capable of both air-to-air combat and ground attack missions. Its durability, payload capacity, and firepower made it a decisive factor in the Allied air campaign over Europe, illustrating how practical innovation in wartime could redefine the role of a single aircraft type. Raoul quickly realized during combat that evasion was often his only option when under attack, leaving him little choice but to react instinctively. On May 12, 1944, he was shot down by P-47 Thunderbolts from the 56th Fighter Group, sustaining the loss of his left thumb in the encounter. His damaged flight glove from that mission is now preserved at the National Air and Space Museum as a testament to his experience. After the war, Raoul spent around 300 hours flying captured P-47 seconds at the German Fighter Leaders School, systematically assessing the capabilities of Allied aircraft. The P-47 proved to be a tactical nightmare for the Luftwaffe because of its ability to switch rapidly from a bomber-like role to a fully armed fighter. German interceptors approaching what appeared to be lightly armed fighter bombers often found themselves facing heavily armed, resilient aircraft that had just jettisoned bombs and returned to their original fighter configuration. The P-47's bomb-carrying capacity alone presented a serious logistical challenge to German forces. A standard P-47 D-25 could be outfitted with a variety of loadouts, two 1,000-pound bombs, three 500-pound bombs, or a mix of bombs and rockets totaling up to 2,500 pounds. This meant that a single P-47 could carry roughly 62% of a B-17's typical 4,000-pound bomb load on extended missions, essentially half the payload of a heavy bomber. A squadron of 16 P-47 seconds could therefore deliver 32,000 pounds of ordnance in a single sortie, an amount equivalent to 8 fully loaded B-17 seconds. Unlike the heavy bombers, which typically operated on twice-weekly schedules from England, P-47 squadrons were capable of launching up to 3 sorties daily from forward airfields. This operational flexibility allowed a single squadron to theoretically deliver more total ordnance in a single day than a heavy bomber wing could in an entire week. Moreover, while a single P-47 required only 1 pilot and a minimal support crew, a B-17 demanded 10 airmen and a full complement of specialized ground personnel, making the fighter bomber an extraordinarily efficient weapon. August 1944 highlighted the P-47's devastating effectiveness during the encirclement operations in France. As German units attempted to break out between August 12 and 21, they were subjected to relentless attacks from P-47 operating in staggered rotations from dawn until dusk. Verified reports from ground reconnaissance confirm substantial destruction. On August 13, 112 tanks were eliminated. August 14 saw 287 motor vehicles destroyed. August 15, 42 locomotives. And August 16, 89 horse-drawn vehicles. The 9th Air Force maintained constant pressure through a relay system, sending fresh squadrons to replace those returning for refueling and rearming. Subsequent analysis determined that roughly one-third of all German vehicles lost during the encirclement fell victim to air assaults, with P-47 responsible for the majority. By September 1944, the P-47's arsenal expanded with the introduction of the 5-inch high-velocity aircraft rocket, HVAR, turning the aircraft into a potent tank killer. Each rocket carried a 60-pound warhead capable of penetrating even the heavily armored Tiger and Panther tanks. With the capacity to carry 10 rockets, a single P-47 could unleash firepower equivalent to a battalion-level artillery barrage in one pass. The 362nd Fighter Group pioneered systematic rocket attacks, developing precise tactics that involved diving from 5,000 feet at a 30-degree angle and releasing rockets at 1,500 feet, achieving direct hits on 30–40% of launches, far outperforming conventional artillery accuracy. The Battle of the Bulge in December 1944 further showcased the P-47's transformation into an all-weather fighter bomber. Even under freezing fog and snow, which grounded most other aircraft, P-47 equipped with British-designed rocket rails and improved flight instruments continued to strike German positions with remarkable effectiveness. Through tactical innovation, payload flexibility, and sheer resilience, the P-47 emerged as a decisive force capable of delivering unmatched firepower with minimal resources, fundamentally altering the dynamics of air-ground combat in the European theater. When skies briefly cleared on December 23, 1944, P-47 Thunderbolts took advantage of the opportunity, conducting 647 sorties and claiming the destruction of over 400 enemy vehicles. Assessing the period from December 23 to 27, the impact of the P-47 becomes evident. 201 tanks confirmed destroyed, nearly 2,000 motor vehicles eliminated, 953 horse-drawn wagons wrecked, 89 locomotives taken out. By January 1945, the P-47 had demonstrated yet another operational strength: highly accurate attacks on bridges using 1,000-pound bombs. Pilots from the 56th Fighter Group refined techniques that allowed them to neutralize railway bridges that had resisted heavy bomber assaults. Groups of 8 P-47 could deliver bombs with approximately 50-foot precision during 60-degree dives, a level of accuracy far surpassing that of high-altitude heavy bombers, which frequently struggled to strike within 1,000 feet of their target. The introduction of the Messerschmitts Me-262 jet fighter in early 1945 appeared poised to change air combat dynamics. Its top speed exceeded that of P-47 by roughly 100 miles per hour, suggesting near immunity to interception. However, the P-47's evolution into a versatile fighter bomber unexpectedly countered this threat. The jets required long concrete runways and consumed fuel at prodigious rates, making their bases highly vulnerable. On March 21, 1945, aircraft from the 365th Fighter Group intercepted Me-262 of JG-7 during takeoff from the Leipzig airfield. As the jets accelerated along the runway, they were unable to maneuver or gain the speed needed to evade attack. In a mere 5 minutes, 8 Me-262 were destroyed, an amount the Luftwaffe could not replace in a week. During Operation Clarion in March 1945, Allied fighter bombers systematically dismantled Germany's transportation infrastructure. P-47 squadrons were assigned sectors with strict orders to target anything capable of movement. On March 22 alone, P-47 crews reported destroying 89 locomotives, 1,026 rail cars, 155 motor vehicles, and 17 bridges, while severing 93 rail lines. The continuous evolution of the P-47 itself was central to these achievements. The P-47D-25, introduced in mid-1944, incorporated heavily reinforced wings capable of supporting 3,000 pounds of external ordnance, universal bomb racks compatible with both British and American munitions, zero-length rocket launchers to reduce aerodynamic, paddle blade propellers improved acceleration, while water injection boosted engine output to 2,800 horsepower. Additionally, the K-14 computing gunsight allowed for precise bombing. Production efficiency at Republic Aviation's Farmingdale and Evansville plants was extraordinary. At peak output, they could build 35 P-47 seconds per day, producing 28 major variants and supplying 430 field modification kits. Remarkably, both factories maintained continuous operations for 4 years without halting for redesign, a feat unmatched by any other fighter manufacturer of the era. Converting P-47 pilots from single-role fighters into multi-role combat aviators necessitated innovative training. The USAAF required a minimum of 200 flight hours before combat deployment, which included 50 practice bombing runs, 20 rocket firing exercises, 100 strafing missions, 40 hours of instrument flying, and 30 hours of formation flying. By contrast, late-war Luftwaffe pilot preparation had deteriorated to only 110 hours of flight training without any fighter-bomber instruction for their fighter pilots. Consequently, American aviators exhibited proficiency across a wide range of missions: high-altitude escort, medium-altitude combat, low-level navigation, dive bombing, skip bombing, glide bombing, rocket attacks, napalm deployment, and strafing, shifting between roles fluidly as operations demanded. In February 1945, the P-47 fleet further expanded its capabilities with the introduction of napalm ordnance. Through relentless adaptation in both technology and tactics, the P-47 Thunderbolt became a formidable, multi-role weapon combining ground attack precision, operational flexibility, and production scalability to exert decisive pressure on Germany's military infrastructure in the closing months of the war. During the final months of World War II, the introduction of 150-gallon drop tanks loaded with jellied gasoline transformed aerial attacks into devastating incendiary weapons, capable of obliterating entire urban blocks or forested enemy positions. The 362nd Fighter Group was the first to utilize these napalm-equipped missions on February 14, 1945, targeting a concealed Wehrmacht supply depot in the Reichswald forest. 8 P-47 Thunderbolts, each carrying a single napalm tank and a 500-pound bomb, generated a firestorm visible from 20 miles away, consuming 3 acres of stockpiled material within minutes. Between March and May 1945, the P-47 reached the pinnacle of its operational development. The P-47M variant, capable of speeds up to 470 mph, entered service with performance rivaling early jet aircraft. Meanwhile, the P-47N, specifically engineered for operations in the Pacific Theater, could carry ordnance across 2,350 miles. Yet, it was not merely speed or range that distinguished these aircraft. The flexibility of the P-47's tactical employment marked a significant shift in aerial warfare. P-47 seconds served in multiple capacities beyond traditional fighter roles. They functioned as forward air controllers coordinating other aircraft, artillery observers for ground units, reconnaissance platforms capturing battlefield intelligence, and communication relays bridging operational gaps. They even conducted psychological operations by distributing leaflets and supplied besieged units with essential resources. In a single day, a single aircraft type could execute 6 entirely different mission profiles, demonstrating an unprecedented operational versatility. The scale and efficiency of P-47 operations underline its transformative impact. A total of 15,683 units were produced, making it the most widely manufactured American fighter. Production was concentrated at 3 facilities. Republic Aviation in Farmingdale produced 9,086 aircraft, Republic Evansville 6,242, and Curtiss Wright in Buffalo 354. The production peak reached 35 aircraft per day, with unit costs dramatically decreasing from $15,594 in 1942 to $83,194 by 1945. Combat activity statistics are equally impressive. Over 746,000 sorties were flown, with 3,499 aircraft lost in combat and 1,723 to non-combat incidents, representing a loss rate of just 0.7% per mission. The P-47 achieved a 4.6-to-1 air-to-air kill ratio. Its ordnance output was staggering. 132,000 tons of bombs dropped, 135,000 rockets fired, and 119 million rounds of .250 caliber ammunition expended. Confirmed destruction in the European theater included 3,916 enemy aircraft destroyed in the air, 3,220 on the ground, 9,000 locomotives, 86,000 railcars, 68,000 motor vehicles, 6,000 armored vehicles, and 60,000 horse-drawn units. The operational evolution of the P-47 redefined military strategy. Pre-war doctrines treated strategic bombing and tactical air support as separate spheres. Heavy bombers targeted strategic objectives, fighters ensured air superiority, and dedicated attack aircraft supported ground operations. The P-47 blurred these distinctions, producing strategic outcomes through tactical actions. Its relentless assaults on transportation networks achieved results that years of conventional strategic bombing had struggled to accomplish. By April 1945, German forces were effectively immobilized during daylight hours. Supply lines broke down, reinforcements failed to reach the front, and the accumulated impact of tactical air power translated directly into strategic advantage. Post-war analyses by strategic bombing survey teams concluded that fighter-bomber operations, particularly those conducted by P-47 seconds, had reduced forward area rail movement by 75% by March 1945, confirming the profound effect of this multi-role aircraft on the outcome of the war. The paralysis of German transportation networks played a more decisive role in the Allied victory than the direct bombing of factories and industrial complexes. The operational effectiveness of the P-47 Thunderbolt was a major factor in this outcome, compelling a profound re-evaluation of air combat strategy. By 1947, the U.S. 7th Air Force's inaugural doctrine manual acknowledged this transformation, stating that the traditional distinction between fighters and attack aircraft was no longer relevant. Fighters were now expected to engage in ground strikes, and attack aircraft had to be equipped to defend themselves in the air. This marked a complete departure from pre-war assumptions. In 1935, the Army Air Corps Manual emphasized that pursuit aircraft existed solely to achieve air superiority through aerial combat, warning that diversions to other roles would weaken this primary mission. The P-47 demonstrated that flexibility in roles dramatically increased combat effectiveness. An aircraft restricted to air-to-air fighting was only half as valuable as one capable of both air combat and ground attack. This lesson influenced the design philosophy of all subsequent American fighters. The P-47's multi-role capability became a template not only for the US but for military aviation worldwide. By the outbreak of the Korean War in 1950, aircraft such as the F-84 Thunderjet and F-86 Sabre, direct conceptual descendants of the Thunderbolts, dominated tactical operations as fighter bombers. The notion of a versatile multi-role fighter had firmly taken root as standard doctrine. The transformation of the P-47 at Republic Aviation exemplified the peak of American industrial ingenuity. Alexander Cartwright, the company's founder, had built the airframe with enormous structural margins. When the Army Air Forces requested an aircraft capable of withstanding 6G, Cartwright delivered a design rated for 12G. They sought a 500-pound bomb load capacity. He engineered the plane to carry 5 times that. This deliberate over-engineering allowed rapid field modifications that enhanced operational capability faster than any formal redesign process could. By 1945, P-47 seconds rolling off Republic's production lines incorporated hundreds of upgrades derived from combat experience, all without halting production for major redesigns. The production feat itself was staggering. Over 48 continuous months, 15,683 Thunderbolts were built, encompassing 28 major variants and 430 field modification kits. At peak efficiency, the factories produced 35 aircraft daily across 2 separate plants, all while reducing costs by 27% even as the aircraft's capabilities grew. The P-47's fighter bomber concepts left a lasting mark on subsequent combat aircraft. Its direct successors, the F-84 Thunderjet, F-105 Thunderchief, and beyond carried forward the philosophy of robust, adaptable fighters capable of executing both air-to-air and air-to-ground missions. Later generations, including the F-4 Phantom II, F-16 Fighting Falcon, F-15E Strike Eagle, F-A-18 Hornet, and F-35 Lightning II, all reflect this multi-role legacy. The Thunderbolt established a design principle that prioritized structural strength and operational adaptability, letting real-world requirements shape continuous capability evolution. The comprehensive training regimen developed for P-47 fighter bomber pilots also set enduring standards. Pilots were trained in air combat, ground attack, reconnaissance, and electronic warfare, embodying the multi-role approach pioneered during World War II. The mandatory 200-hour pre-combat preparation for P-47 pilots became a model for post-war air forces worldwide. Emphasis on precision in formation flying, instrument navigation, and weapons delivery accuracy established professional benchmarks that continue to define modern military aviation. Even Luftwaffe veterans reflecting on post-war assessments consistently acknowledged the P-47 fighter bomber as a decisive factor in Germany's defeat, underscoring the aircraft's enduring impact on both strategy and technology. The first-hand account of Gallen, who extensively piloted captured P-47 Thunderbolts in the post-war period, offers invaluable perspective on the aircraft's capabilities. In a 1996 interview with HistoryNet, he highlighted the P-47's exceptional comfort, operational reliability, and multi-role flexibility. Notably, he observed that the engine maintained perfect integrity without the oil leaks common in contemporary German fighters. Statistical evidence reinforces these personal observations. By the final months of World War II, the Luftwaffe could field only around 100 operational fighters daily. This shortage was not due to a lack of aircraft, but rather to severe fuel scarcity, destroyed airfields, and logistical disruptions, many inflicted directly by P-47 operations. The fighter bomber achieved operational disruption on a scale that conventional strategic bombing had failed to accomplish. When examining efficiency, the P-47's performance was striking. The cost to deliver a ton of bombs with a B-17 Flying Fortress was approximately $28,000 and $24,000 with a B-24 Liberator. In contrast, a P-47 could deliver ordnance for just $4,200 per ton. Crew losses were similarly disproportionate: 8.5 aircrew per 100 tons for the B-17, 7.2 for the B-24, and only 0.9 pilots for the P-47. Ground support requirements also reflected the disparity: 47 personnel per ton for heavy bombers compared to only 8 per ton for P-47 seconds. In effect, the Thunderbolt inflicted destruction at roughly 15% of the cost and required just a tenth of the manpower relative to conventional bombers. This remarkable transition of the P-47 from a dedicated fighter to a fully capable fighter bomber, able to carry roughly half the bomb load of a B-17, exemplifies more than mere tactical innovation. It demonstrates a distinctly American approach to military adaptation, a willingness to prioritize practical efficiency over rigid specialization. The Luftwaffe, steeped in a doctrine that prized perfect execution in narrowly defined roles, had not anticipated such a transformation. German strategy celebrated singular excellence, the finest fighter, the finest bomber, while American doctrine, shaped by industrial pragmatism, valued versatility and rapid adaptation. The September 17, 1944 engagement over Eindhoven illustrated this principle in action. Luftwaffe pilots confronting P-47 seconds encountered not just a different aircraft, but a fundamentally new operational concept. The heavy, unwieldy interceptors they had dismissed in 1943 had evolved into highly effective multi-role weapons. Success did not stem from excelling in a single dimension, but from the P-47's remarkable adaptability across multiple combat roles. From 1943 to 1945, the P-47 established an exceptional combat record in the European theater. Its performance metrics were impressive. The P-47D reached a top speed of 433 mph, while the P-47M could push 470 mph. It had a combat radius of 450 miles with drop tanks, a service ceiling of 43,000 feet, and could carry up to 2,500 pounds of bombs. Production was extensive and efficient, with a total of 15,683 aircraft built, peaking at 150 units per month and achieving a 27% cost reduction over the production run. Field modifications numbered over 430, reflecting continuous adaptability. Combat effectiveness was equally remarkable. 746,000 sorties flown, a loss rate of just 0.7% per mission, a kill ratio of 4.61, more than 132,000 tons of bombs dropped. The story of the P-47 carrying a significant bomb load, something the Luftwaffe had not expected, reveals a fundamental lesson about military innovation. The Germans, experts in specialized design, failed to anticipate that the Americans would merge the roles of fighter and bomber into a single versatile platform. The evolution of the Thunderbolt from interceptor to fighter-bomber reshaped the air war. It did not rely on exceptional performance in one domain, but excelled through comprehensive capability across multiple missions. Modern combat aviation owes much to the lessons derived from the P-47. The heavy, cumbersome fighter that could not outmaneuver a Messerschmitts became a decisive instrument in the Allied victory. Adaptability, rather than pure specialization, proved the determining factor. The Luftwaffe's inability to foresee that P-47 seconds could deliver half a B-17's payload exemplifies how a rigid adherence to conventional thinking can compromise even the most skilled military force. The P-47's transformation remains a defining case study in how tactical flexibility can drive strategic success and how failure to anticipate such shifts can lead to catastrophic consequences.